Steve Beckles-Ebusua is a leading international professional and inspirational speaker. He is a trainer, coach, author of Because I Said So, and the founder of a personal development business. Steve is an expert, of course, in helping teenagers, undergrads and graduates to overcome self-defeating beliefs. And like I say, us grown folk kind of have a little love for him too, you know. Now, he actually trained and mentored, I've mentioned this before, the young people that have been featured on the award-winning campaign for Barclays Life Skills commercials. And he's going to tell us more this morning about other involvement he has with organisations based on money. But since he was last here in December, he's been invited to speak in LA and in Cyprus, and he's added to the orange tie with the beautiful orange shoes. And so I have to say, welcome back, Steve. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome. It's great to be here. Oh my goodness.
Right, so let's just kick things off. Why is it important that our young people and our children are learning about money?
Well, it was really interesting kind of listening to you guys earlier on talking about the importance of politics and getting young people involved in it. It's just as important as money, as the aspect of money. Look at the debt we're in. It's just huge, and it just makes you realise that our young people are now growing up around this debt. And if it becomes the mindset of the normality to be in debt, I think we're going to have a massive problem. Was it 1.3 trillion people kind of in debt in the UK? I think that's something we need to look at.
Absolutely, and the worrying part actually was even after Christmas when the debt figures were coming out, it was almost an apathy towards debt. It was almost like, I don't know what to do about it, so I'm just not going to do anything and bury my head in the sand and pretend it's not a problem. And a lot of people were sort of, when being asked the question, what are you going to do, we're going, nothing.
And I think, and it is scary, and I think because out there are so many supposed safety nets, the mindset is, well, you know what, it's okay, because it will get sorted out, or someone will help me out. But you know, we've got to break from that mindset, and it does start with our youth, and it kind of sounds a bit corny, but it does. It's got to start from the youth, because they then have to start to get to realise that, you know what, you've got to look at yourself and how you are as a person with your money. Very important.
Absolutely. Now, nobody gets a manual as a parent on this is how you do it. You know, the good thing is that with most occupations in life, there is a how-to book. You know, you don't get a manual with parenting. So, I mean, how do you teach young people about money, and when do you start?
Yeah, well, when do you start? I mean, what's really interesting is that I think it's all about looking at mindsets, and the mindset, the actual word itself, makes you realise that it's about developing a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, and the ages are remarkably young. I've been doing some research, and I'm going to give some book references, not my book, but books that I've read around this subject, so your listeners can go off and do some research into this. But they say around 3, 4, 5, 6, those kind of ages is when they start understanding what money is. So give it to someone, and then I get something back, which is really nice. It's that kind of concept. And what's really great is that I do have kind of 7 steps I've kind of put together myself through my experience. I've got a 3-year-old daughter, and I have 2 big teenage sons as well. And it's that understanding, that process that I've gone through, that I thought, you know what, I want to share this, and hopefully kind of gets the ball rolling. I always talk about the metaphor of pushing a car, and it's often quite difficult when it's broken down. But as you get the momentum going, all of a sudden you think, whoa, this is all, do you know what, I can do this. And if you can have that mindset, believe you me, your child will have that mindset as well, because they're going to feed from you.
Well, indeed, because I always feel like parents either intentionally or accidentally teach their children about money. I grew up with a mother who always used to say, you know, do as I say, not what I do. And I'm like, no, like that is the most backwards concept for me ever, and worse because I'm visual as a learner. You know, I think as kids we take in what we see and what we're part of. So, you know, what should parents be thinking about, even if they're thinking, okay, well, you know, I don't understand APR, how am I going to teach my child that? I mean, you know, how do you bring it down to sort of a parent recognizing their impact?
Well, what I normally say is to really look at the value of what money is in your eyes. And it's often, I do a lot of mindset programs in schools across the country, and one of the first things I often say to the teachers I'm doing this mindset program is that yes, this program is about changing the young people's mindset, but you know what, you've got to change yours first. because if you don't change, there's no way you're going to deliver that change to young people. So I think you've got to look at money for what it is. What does it represent to you? And as I said, with the ideas and steps I've got, I'm going to kind of talk about how you can really turn this into a practical way of working with your son or daughter. Now, I'm talking at 3, 5-year-olds up to teenagers to use some techniques. And one of the techniques I'll share with you is using jam jars, 3 jam jars,
Yes.
empty ones. They're brilliant.
Yeah, I love the jam
and
jars.
you label them. Yeah, and with the labels, you look at what each one's going to represent. So obviously you've got savings, you've got spending, but do you know what? I think the most important one is sharing.
Yeah.
Now I do this with my daughter. We started at 2.5, which was a bit of a struggle because she tried to put her hand in the jam jar. But what I started to do, we did an exercise. When she got to 3, we labelled each jar.
Yeah.
Okay. And we got her pictures. Just took a picture on the phone and printed it out. And each picture would represent either the savings, the spending, and the sharing. Now the savings, whenever she got some money from grandma, because grandma gives her loads of money, would say, right, okay, how much are we going to put into this jar? Now that'd be our spending jar. How much do you put into the savings jar? And probably the most important one is the sharing jar. Because when you think about other people, you then start to grow as a person. So what we were doing, I think we were putting, put £3, £3, and we put £4 in the sharing, because at that stage she wasn't kind of aware, oh, I want to give it to her. But then she began to realise is that as she's building up her sharing and building up her saving, building up her spending, these were jars she could visually see. And so what she was saying to me, she goes, I'm going to give this much now because, Daddy, I've got this much for sharing. I said, this is brilliant. So what about your spending? Do you want to spend more or less? And we had this conversation over jam jars.
Yeah.
Whereas if you try to sit down and say, right, we're going to talk about money, sit down, and it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it'll be that whole kind of perception of what money is and whatever. And but now it's just the jam jars with her face on each jam jar representing her saving. I think it's a good start. Yeah? Even if your child is perhaps not of the age you're thinking, just get 3 jam jars, paint, colour, whatever, spend hours. As much time as you want creating these jars, because then you can then start attaching. Because what happens, they have an ownership to those jam jars.
Yes.
Because it's got my picture on it, it's got whatever, and they start that whole concept of what saving is. It works a treat.
No, I love it, and I mean, I have to, because I always say I famously come from a family of consumers, because when you talk about 2, and I know some parents might be thinking, well, 2's a bit young, let me tell you, my nephew learned his colours by the supermarkets, because he could tell you which one was orange, which one was green, etc. Yeah, and interestingly, you talk about jam jars and sticky little fingers. My niece has already learned how to kind of get into her granddad's jam jar, because I was watching her the other day, like, oh, okay, I think she might have learned this from grandma. So I think that it's never too young is the point. And I think that, I know that both my niece and nephew, I can say to them, for example, I'll turn up at the house, where's mom? Oh, she's gone to work. What's she gone to work for? To make money, to buy me toys. If, to me, your child has enough concept to understand that, then they can start learning about money. They can start
learning, definitely. And I know you spoke a little bit about the kind of the whole idea of grandma, the jar, etc. Because one of the things, another tip I often do with my daughter as well, is when we go shopping, I give her a penny. Okay, she's got a penny in her hand, and as we're walking around together, I'd say, "Oh, how much is that?" And she'll say, "Oh, that's 20p." And I said, "Okay, well, you've only got 1 at the moment, but if we save this, you need another 19 in order to get to that 20." But what happens? It becomes a journey, because she then walks around, start pointing at things. Oh, Daddy, that means I need another 10 for this and another, and she's holding that penny. Like her dear life depends on it. And then what happens, we go shopping again, she has another penny, and we build up this, and she says, oh, Dad, I'm getting close to be able to afford that sweetie. Not too many sweeties, mind you, but do you know what I mean? And
no, absolutely.
We have this kind of relationship through this fun thing, but she's learning at the same time.
Yeah. Beautiful, I love it. Okay, well, when we come back in a few moments, I'd like to learn a little bit more about MyBnk. I know you've been working with them and what initiatives are involved there, and I know that you also have your own money program.
That's right.
And Steve, as usual, he's a wonderful sharer, so he's going to be sharing some tips with parents out there, so make sure you've got a pen and a piece of paper if you want to be able to engage more and to do more. So we'll be back in just a few moments with that.